Hello and welcome. We are back in Genesis chapter 13, and I'm going to go ahead and get started. We are going to read the chapter heading Abram returns from Egypt. He and Lot part. The Lord will make Abram's seed as the dust of the earth in number. Abram settles down in Hebron. And verse 1 And Abram went up out of Egypt, he and his wife, and all that he had, and Lot with him, into the south. Verse 2 And Abram was very rich in cattle, in silver and in gold. Verse 3 And he went on his journeys from the south even to Bethel, unto the place where his tent had been at the beginning, between Bethel and Hai. Verse 4 Unto the place of the altar which he had made there at first, and there Abram called upon the name of the Lord. Verse 5 And Lot also went with Abram, had flocks and herds and tents. Verse 6 And the land was not able to bear them, that they might dwell there together. For their substance was great, so that they could not dwell together. Verse 7 And there was a strife between the herdmen of Abram's cattle and the herdmen of Lot's cattle, and the Canaanite and the Perizzite dwelled there then in the land. So there's a little bit of a struggle between Abram and Lot here. And Lot went with Abram, so it's one of Abram's friends. They have a lot of stuff with them. So Abram's got a lot of fine goods and material, and Lot has a lot of tents and and provisions. They both have provisions, but there's a lot of material here. And now we're going to get into a little bit of a struggle here. Verse 8 And Abram said unto Lot, Let there be no strife, I pray thee, between me and thee, and between my herdsmen and thy herdmen, for we be brethren. So immediately, Abram is dispelling the argument or strife that they have between each other, which is awesome. And because he says we're brothers, which is awesome. So, verse 9 Is not the whole land before thee? Separate thyself, I pray thee, from me. If thou wilt take the left hand, then I will go to the right. If thou depart from the right hand, then I will go to the left. In verse 10 And Lot lifted up his eyes and beheld all the plain of Jordan, that it was well watered everywhere, before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, even as the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt, and thou comest unto Zoar, as thou comest unto Zoar. In verse 11 Then Lot chose him all the plain of Jordan, and the Lot journeyed east, and they separated themselves from one from the other. In verse 12 Abram dwelled in the land of Canaan, and the Lot dwelled in the cities of the plain, and pitched his tent toward Sodom. Verse 13 But the men of Sodom were wicked and sinners before the Lord exceedingly. There's a lot happening here. I kind of glazed over it as I was reading, but Lot chooses a land that's a plain that's got some water, and Abram dwells in Canaan, and Lot in the cities of the plain. And this is kind of an introduction in verse 13 when it says, But the men of Sodom were wicked and sinners before the Lord exceedingly. So we're going to keep going. Verse 14 And the Lord said unto Abraham, after that Lot was separated from him, Lift up now thine eyes, and look from the place where thou art northward, and southward, and eastward, and westward. Verse 15 For all the land which thou seest, to thee will I give it, and to thy seed forever. And verse 16 And I will make thy seed as the dust of the earth, so that if a man can number the dust of the earth, then shall thy seed also be numbered. Verse 17. Arise, walk through in the land the length of it, and in the breadth of it, for I will give it unto thee. In verse 18. Then Abram removed his tent, and came and dwelt in the plain of Mamre, which is in Hebron, and built there an altar unto the Lord. That was a fun chapter, Genesis 13. I think Genesis 10, if I'm double checking here, is where the Tower of Babel is. No, so Tower of Babel is Genesis chapter 11. But, yeah, the reason I want to refer back to Genesis chapter 11 for a second is because if we went into verse 13 of Genesis chapter 13, it actually mirrors the authoring style of that first verse in Genesis chapter 11. So, yeah, because in Genesis chapter 13 it says, "But the men of Sodom were wicked and sinners before the Lord exceedingly." And so it's almost like a highlight or like visceral imagery of vivid imagery of certain peoples. And it's the same as Genesis chapter 11 when you go to the very first verse and it says the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. It's just showing the drastic difference between what happened in the Tower of Babel and when they were all unified as one people and when they were separated by language. It's almost like they started to hate one another. And I think it's really cool that God separated their language and gave them this kind of almost like a mirror. It's almost like God gave them a mirror in a very unique way because they saw their fellow man when they spoke a different language as foreign and perhaps even primitive and perhaps even some strong words like vile or and anyways we just finished Genesis chapter 13. I just thought that was a really cool take and I wanted to finish with that. But we just finished Genesis chapter 13 and we're going to head into Genesis chapter 14. And thank you for watching the live stream. Thank you.